"She has a gentle face," remarked Mr. Marufu, once he had set his eyes on their bundle of joy and latest addition to the family. Mrs. Marufu, exhausted from her labor, remarked that she was a sweet girl. They decided to call their new, seemingly quiet baby daughter Grace, a name suitable for their new bundle of joy. Their sweet, gorgeous girl, Grace, would eventually become the most powerful woman and the First Lady of Zimbabwe, and would change the course of history for that country. Not in a good way. Like with many parents, their daughter Grace did not turn out exactly the way they thought. The once sweet little girl ended up as the most hated First Lady on the African continent. This is the story of Grace Mugabe. Grace Ntombizodwa Mugabe was born on 23 July 1965 in Benoni, South Africa as Grace Ntombizodwa Marufu, the fourth of 5 children to Zimbabwean parents, Mr. and Mrs. Marufu, who had migrated to South Africa for work. After securing some financial resources, Grace and her mother returned to the then Rhodesia in 1970 when she was 5 years old. The family settled back in Kivu province. Eventually, the teenager Grace would marry an Air Force pilot, Stanley Goreraza, and they had a son, Russell Goreraza, born in 1984 when Grace was 19 years old. At the center of Grace Mugabe's extraordinary journey from a local married young woman to the most powerful woman in Zimbabwe is a controversial love story which began when Grace Marufu, still married to Stanley Goreraza, secured a job as a young copy typist, also known as a secretary, working at the State House for President Robert Mugabe in the late 80s. Soon, the young woman caught the attention of her boss and the most powerful man in Zimbabwe, President Robert Mugabe. "He came to me and started asking about my family," said Grace Mugabe in one of her rare interviews that she spoke about the affair. "I looked at him as a father figure. I did not know he would at all look at me and say, 'I like that girl.' I least expected that," said Grace Mugabe. President Mugabe, 41 years older than Grace, continued to woo the young lady with tea and scones. While we are sure it wasn't the tea or the scones that won Grace over, but she gave in to his advances. Grace Mugabe said she had reservations about the relationship as President Mugabe was still married to his wife, the First Lady Amai Sally Mugabe, who was terminally ill from kidney failure at the time. And surprise, surprise, Grace was also still married to her husband Stanley Goreraza. President Mugabe would go on to claim that the late Sally Mugabe had given consent to his relationship with Grace before she passed away in 1992 of kidney failure. The First Lady, Amai Sally Mugabe, had received dialysis for some years prior to her death. Amai, which means mother of the nation, Sally Mugabe, and Robert Mugabe had suffered the tragedy of losing their only son and child when their boy, just 3 years of age, died of cerebral malaria, while Robert Mugabe was imprisoned in 1966. They never had any other children. After the death of the First Lady, Sally Mugabe, Robert Mugabe and Grace continued their heated romance, and by 1995 they secretly had 2 children, Bona, a daughter named after the president's mother, and Robert Jr. After it became public that President Mugabe and Grace had children, Grace Mugabe divorced her husband Stanley Goreraza in 1995 or 1996. President Mugabe and Grace had their last born son Bellarmine Chatunga in 1997. Interestingly, soon after the divorce, the ex-husband, Stanley Goreraza, was sent to China for university studies and was due to return in 2000. But by 2001, he was appointed as Zimbabwe's military attaché to China in the Zimbabwean embassy in China. Amazingly, he still serves to this day in the same position, ranked as wing commander. Even more interesting, Stanley Goreraza was hospitalized in China in 2001 and was visited by Robert and Grace Mugabe. Mugabe and Grace got married in 1996 in an extravagant wedding that was dubbed the wedding of the century in Zimbabwe. 40,000 people attended the wedding, including Nelson Mandela and other presidents and dignitaries. Initially, Mrs. Grace Mugabe kept to herself and struggled to emerge from the shadow of the hugely popular and beloved late First Lady Amai Sally Mugabe. In public, she behaved like most first ladies on the African continent. She kept busy with charity work, but privately, she was indulging in legendary shopping expeditions across continents, and she was accumulating vast amounts of wealth, plotting a political path, and allegedly having love affairs. By the year 2000, President Mugabe was becoming more and more authoritarian, and the country's early economic gains gave way to an economy in free fall, following Mugabe's policies, which included land seizures from white farmers, resulting in donor sanctions and the collapse of the agriculture sector, giving up its reputation as the breadbasket of Africa. As Zimbabweans got poorer, Grace Mugabe intensified her travels to fashion capitals of the world, which quickly became an addiction for her. Soon, Zimbabweans noticed and gave her nicknames of Gucci Grace, First Shopper, and Disgrace. Grace Mugabe famously spent £75,000 in one afternoon in Paris, France. Asked by a reporter about her footwear, Gucci Grace famously replied, "I have narrow feet, so I can only wear Ferragamos." Grace famously bought 12 diamond rings, 62 pairs of Ferragamo shoes, and an £80,000 Rolex watch in 1 year. By 2014, she was spending over $2 million a year shopping. For the Amat Million mansion, the Blue Roof mansion in Harare, which is worth about $15 million, she bought a £200,000 headboard for the couple's bed. I bet she slept in peace after that. Grace Mugabe bought other multi-million-dollar homes across the world, reportedly in Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, and Dubai. Grace famously spent $3 million on her daughter's Bona's wedding, with catering coming from Singapore. Grace Mugabe established Amai Mugabe Group of Schools in 2013. Flagship school Amai Mugabe Christian High, located in Mazowe, was constructed on an estate she grabbed from a Zimbabwean stock exchange-listed company. This is not the only land she grabbed. The rich land of Mazowe, 40 kilometers north of the capital, used to be owned exclusively by white farmers. According to recent comments by President Mnangagwa, Grace Mugabe owns up to 16 farms in Mazowe, which is against the law of the land. During the land seizures, Mugabe and his wife took several of the choice farms in this area. As they say, the apple does not fall far from the tree, the couple's children appeared to have acquired their parents' taste for luxury. The boys live a playboy lifestyle. The youngest son, Chatunga, posted a video on Snapchat showing himself pouring £200 a bottle champagne over a $45,000 watch on a night out in South Africa. He said, "When daddy runs the whole country." Grace Mugabe's son from her first marriage, Russell Goreraza, took delivery of 2 Rolls-Royce vehicle limousines in 2017, valued between $400,000 and $500,000 each, adding to his several luxury cars including a Porsche, Range Rovers, Mercedes-Benzes, among others. Eventually, almost all the Western countries would ban the Mugabes from visiting their countries, bringing to an end the globe-trotting for high-end goods. By this time, Grace Mugabe was vocal on the political scene and slowly establishing herself as the real power behind the presidency, gaining political influence by the day as President Mugabe was slowing down due to old age. Grace Mugabe harbored raging ambitions to succeed her husband as the next president of Zimbabwe. To boost her political image, she earned a PhD in sociology from the University of Zimbabwe in record time of 2 months. Yes, you heard that right, 2 months. And she was Dr. Grace Mugabe. Grace Mugabe was known for her sharp tongue and pulling no punches when attacking political opponents and fiercely defending President Mugabe. The feisty Grace Mugabe booted out an old friend of hers, the then Vice President of Zimbabwe, Joyce Mujuru, in 2014 from the government. She said Mujuru was corrupt, an extortionist, incompetent, a gossiper, a liar, and ungrateful. And she accused her of wearing miniskirts to seduce a political figure whom many believed was in reference to her husband. She said, "Let me tell you, she was inappropriately dressed. I trapped her," while pacing back and forth dramatically, animated with hand gestures. Soon, Vice President Mujuru was replaced by Mr. Emmerson Mnangagwa, an old and close ally of President Mugabe. President Mugabe had met Emmerson Mnangagwa in 1972 in Salisbury Central Prison, and later he became Mugabe's assistant and bodyguard during the fight for independence. Mrs. Mugabe said of Mnangagwa, "Mr. Emmerson Mnangagwa is loyal and disciplined. He is good for Zimbabwe." At that time, Mnangagwa was a career politician who had served Mugabe in various ministerial portfolios since independence in 2014. But true to form, by 2017, Mrs. Grace Mugabe was publicly calling for his removal, saying Mnangagwa was planning a coup to oust her husband. When Mnangagwa fell ill at a political rally, his supporters accused Grace Mugabe of poisoning Mr. Mnangagwa with ice cream from Mrs. Mugabe's dairy farm. While the poison aside, one wonders at what point would a whole vice president be having an ice cream at a political rally? Well, only in Zimbabwe, as they say. Mrs. Mugabe denied these accusations, and indeed the crocodile himself, as Mr. Mnangagwa is known due to his violent activities pre-independence in the crocodile gang, accepted that he was poisoned, but not by Grace Mugabe. As of her love affairs, it was alleged that Sabina Mugabe, sister to the president, while on her deathbed following a short illness, informed President Mugabe that his wife Grace was having an affair with Gideon Gono, the Reserve Bank governor of Zimbabwe. At that time, Gideon Gono was close to Robert Mugabe as a confidant and a close friend. It has been reported that President Mugabe was devastated by this liberation. By then, Mugabe was 86 and Grace was 45 years old. Seems there was nothing the old man could do at this stage. Another man, Peter Pamile, a prominent Zimbabwean businessman, was also allegedly having an affair with Grace Mugabe, and he reportedly died in a suspicious car accident while he was still having an affair with Grace Mugabe. Another alleged affair was with James Makamba, who fled Zimbabwe in 2005, citing business persecution as the reason to flee the country. But it is claimed that President Mugabe had learned of the affair, hence he fled. Augustine Chihuru, the exiled former general of Zimbabwe Republic Police, is thought to be the father of Grace Mugabe's last-born son, Bellarmine Chatunga. They do share a strong resemblance, but to be fair, it must just be a coincidence. Apart from her sharp tongue, Grace Mugabe is also known for her volatile temper and physical assaults. In 2017, a 20-year-old young woman accused Mrs. Mugabe of assaulting her at an upscale Johannesburg hotel in South Africa while she was visiting her sons in a hotel room. "I had no idea who this woman was after she started beating me up," Miss Angels, the assault victim, told a radio station. She said that Grace beat her up with an electrical cord, causing a big gash on her forehead. Mrs. Mugabe escaped arrest as she presented herself to the South African police and cooperated with the police and received diplomatic immunity. In 2009, a freelancer reporter in Hong Kong accused Grace Mugabe of repeatedly hitting him in the face as he tried to take a photo of her while shopping in Hong Kong. By 2017, the aging President Mugabe was truly under the thumb of Grace Mugabe. The once mighty dictator was 93 years old and senile. President Mugabe had no choice but to fire Vice President Mnangagwa in a bid to pave way for Grace Mugabe to become the president of Zimbabwe. Mr. Mnangagwa fled to South Africa. This event proved to be the final straw that broke the camel's back, as they say. The fall from grace for Mrs. Mugabe began on November 14, 2017, when the army staged a bloodless coup d'etat to prevent Mrs. Mugabe from taking over the presidency. A few days later, President Mugabe was forced to resign by the military, which marked the end of Mr. Mugabe's 37 years rule of Zimbabwe. On 24th November 2017, the military handed over power to Mr. Emmerson Mnangagwa, becoming the second president of the Republic of Zimbabwe. On 6 September 2019, Robert Mugabe died in Singapore of old age at 95 years old. Grace Mugabe refused for Robert Mugabe's body to be interred at the Heroes Acre, where most political leaders are interred. Instead, he was buried at his home village of Kutama in Mashonaland, West Province. There is an ongoing court case where Grace Mugabe is contesting the order to exhume late President Mugabe's body to be interred at the Heroes Acre. These days, Grace Mugabe, with her Gucci Grace days well and truly over, lives in a private villa in Mount Pleasant, Harare, with her daughter Bona, after deserting the opulent Blue Roof mansion. In exchange for dropping legal proceedings by the government, she agreed to withdraw from the world. As of now, the vast wealth that the Mugabes accumulated appeared to be sinking into oblivion. Grace is failing to manage the multiple farms, with many of them into disrepair and being put up for lease. Most of the wealth is under investigation and inaccessible. There have been auctions of farm equipment by creditors to recoup their debts. The flagship Amai Mugabe High School has many issues of its own. In December 2019, Mugabe's family had declared that the late President Mugabe left $10 million in cash in various banks and without a will. However, the hunt for his wealth continues, which is believed to be in the hundreds of millions of USA dollars. Her sons continue to live their playboy style, though in a much reduced capacity. Her first-born son, Russell, recently was accused of stealing farm equipment, and he was arrested and is in court answering charges. Her country, Zimbabwe, which she played a significant role in its economic collapse, continues to struggle. It has become one of the poorest nations in the world, with ongoing corruption, starvation, political persecution of dissenting voices, and poor leadership, plunging the country into a deeper economic hole. As for the feisty secretary, who nearly became the president of Zimbabwe, her fall from grace continues. Thanks for watching.